Hi, my name is Noel Davis with World Composting, and today I want to talk about a different subject, and that is harvesting worms from a 10-gallon bin. So you have your bin, it's been up and working for months or maybe a year, it's filled with castings, and you need to harvest those worms and separate them. There are multiple ways you could do this, but let's say you want to just start completely from scratch. Now, I have my sorting machine that works great when the material's dry, but when it's wet, it does have some issues, and that's where I do bait my worms to try to get them out. And there's a couple different ways you can do this. I've shown before with food tubes where I'll add a food tube in, which is a cardboard roll, and I'll use that to bait the worms out. But one of the other ways is to add actually a plastic container with holes in it and food, and you bring them into this container by luring them in, and then you pull the container out. So that's what I have right here. I have here a strawberry container that I got from the grocery store. It's got these little slats in it and everything. And that's what I'm going to use to lure worms out of one of my 10-gallon totes. It's really past its harvest date. It's been going for quite a while. It's really filled with castings and it needs to be harvested. So let's go and take a look. And I want to show you how I set this up and how long you're supposed to wait for this to really get those worms in there. So let's go to the bin. Okay, so let's start with setting this up. So I have it open here, and I do keep the lid on. You don't have to necessarily. You can have them even crawling through the top. I could cut this off. I typically have the lid on if I'm doing this, so that way they kind of get trapped in there. There's still air holes in the top, so I'm not too worried about airflow or anything like that. But the first thing we need to do is I need to add a little bit of my paper to the bottom. This is my cardboard and shredded paper, and I'm just going to a little bit. I'm just going to grab a handful here and put it in there. Just a little bit. And now the purpose of this is to kind of hold it down, but also give it a little bit of place for the moisture to go. Got a piece stuck in here. Let me just get that out. And this isn't good. This shouldn't fall through those holes too easily. The next thing I'm going to add is just a little bit of my pellets as well. And this is again just to add a little bit of something to keep aeration in there. And also I'm going to get this wet. Not at this moment though. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some food to put in here. So I have, this is frozen right now, but it's going to thaw out pretty quick, and it's a good way to lure worms in. And this is my banana peels, as you know, but I'm going to break this apart. So I'm going to take off the stem. I'm not going to put the stems in there. I want stuff that's going to break down quickly, so I'm going to grab this piece right here. So just one of the stems here. I'm going to rip off another one. These are frozen, as I said. And one more. Now, there is something major you have to think about with this. You do not want this to be open like this because you're going to get fruit flies. As you know, I've had a fruit fly issue in my house, and you don't want to just have an open part like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a paper towel here to put over top of this. And this is going to kind of protect this material. And these are, by the way, just you can see here, these are used paper towels actually that I've used for drying out other stuff in the basement. But I am going to put a paper towel on top here, just like this, okay? And this is going to kind of keep it concealed from fruit flies and stuff. If they get down in here, hopefully they won't be able to get past it, because this can lure fruit flies when you have it on top like this. On top of that, just a little bit more paper, just like this. All right, and this is pretty much ready to go. The last thing it needs is water, but I will add that once we get it into a bin. So as you can see here, from the side, paper. You can't see the fruit, but the fruit is in there. Paper towel on top, more shredded paper. I added in the little wood chips and everything, but that's because, I choose to do that. You don't have to. Next, we're going to close this up just for now, and we're going to put this off to the side, and let me grab the bin so I can show you how this gets added. Alright, so this is the one that had compost rolls in it. The first thing I'm going to do here as I'm emptying this out is I'm going to take off this piece of tape here labeling what this bin is. Because this is going to be a new test when we restart it here. So I'm going to put that tape off to the side, but now this is a bin that's labeled essentially for me to be emptied or ready to be emptied. So let's open it up here. The bin is kind of dry, not much water on the top really, but that's okay. Part of the reason why we're emptying it. Material actually does look pretty wet. We're just going to dig in here a little bit before we empty this out. This is the one I had those compost rolls in. Fruit fly there. Let me kill him. Let's just see what's going on in here. I haven't really looked at this one in a while because I kept looking. Every time I checked, the paper was still there, and they haven't dug through that yet. Let's just see here. Looks like some worms in here. But I'm not seeing any food. which isn't surprising. Very moist though, the bin, much more moist than I expected. Plenty of pellets here in the bottom. You can see that these pellets have not been worked through or processed, but that's okay. We don't necessarily need that to happen. Just digging on the side here. Some more worms in there. They look pretty healthy. So let's just dig through a little bit more. And this is fine to turn this up, and we're going to be, should have been working through this material pretty well. I think the bottom is very compacted though. I mean, you can really see those wood pellets really well, and you can see what areas have been worked and what have not. And there's even a worm down there in that pellet area. I'm not seeing any food, which is key, although this does look like a artichoke peel right there, so maybe that's still a couple things maybe left in here, but the majority of it looks like it has been eaten or consumed. Again, nice worm population throughout this entire bin so far. Let's just check this side over here. Again, though, really compacted in here. I haven't dug in this one in a while, and it shows. Still worms over here. I'm not seeing any cocoons really, but that isn't too surprising since the material in here has been left for a while and there's not a lot of excess food. So I'm just not sure if there's reason to have cocoons. Actually, is that a cocoon right there? I think on the tip of my finger, tip of my thumb right there is a cocoon actually. So maybe they are making some cocoons in here, but not too many. As I said, not surprising. There's not a lot of excess food. Definitely compacted though. You can really see that this is just compacted, but it still flakes apart pretty easily. I think these wood pellets really help a lot with that. So they're probably starving for some food in here. So I'm just going to mix this in a little bit more. You know, this paper is still edible. The pellets are still edible, but not enough of it really for all these worms in here. So just take that and turn that over. And this bin probably could go a little bit longer, but I really want to clear this out so I can get ready for another experiment to show you guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to dig this little hole in the middle here. All right, so we got this little hole here. It should be big enough for our container. I have our container right here. Actually, I'll put it this way so you can see it a little better. And I'm going to open it up here. All right, there's one thing that I did not put in here. I don't know if you noticed, but I did not put any eggshell or anything like that. I don't feel that's necessary really when you're trying to lure worms. Now I'm going to just spray this down because I want to make sure that it's wet so everything's ready to go. And I don't need a whole lot. I just want enough to kind of saturate it a little bit. I'm going to close this up just like that. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my glove back on. And by the way, I did not have 3 hands. I just left my glove there. I'm going to kind of move all this material all around it here, so that way the worms can get into it. Now, because I'm doing this today and I'm going to post this video very quickly, I'm not going to be able to show you the outcome of this. I'm hoping though, I've done this a couple times and it typically works pretty well for luring these worms in. Typically, I'd rather use like a melon or watermelon. I don't happen to have any, unfortunately, so pumpkin's another good one, but those melons and stuff like that tend to be a little bit better. Now you can also, and I could do this, and actually I might do this just a little bit, you can build this up a little bit, kind of cover it, and that way the worms also can work in from the top as well. So I can do this, cover this up a little bit, and now the worms can go in through those holes on the top, they can go in through the bottom, and then in a week I'm going to want to check on this and see how it's doing. Hopefully a whole lot of worms have migrated in, and then you might want to look around and see how they're doing in your bin, and maybe even do this 2 or 3 times to really kind of clear them out. So that's the start for this. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have questions, please let me know. I have done this before. I don't do it quite as often. Normally I'd rather just dry out my bins and run them through my sifter, but I know not everybody is going to go out and build a sifter at home. And when you only have 1 or 2 of these bins, it's not a big deal to just sort of do this and try to make sure you get it out. The other way would also be to push everything to one side and then maybe feed with fresh bedding on the other side and have all the worms migrate over. So you get all these worms to migrate, and then you can empty that, you can harvest that section out. And that's another way to do this. So there's a lot of different ways to work these 10-gallon totes. The key though is not letting them get filled too high. If they get too high, it gets really hard to move that material over without overloading one side of the bin where it's above this edge here. and you want to make sure that you have enough room for all the worms to migrate over. So you'd rather have it really low, below this. There's like a ridge in here that's probably about halfway or a little bit less than halfway full. You really want to keep it low, and that way you have that extra room in your bins. So for those that are working on these, you really need to make sure you harvest early and often. And if you're doing the half and half, you really need to just make sure you do it. If you don't, you're going to have a lot of issues, which I've run into in trying to do those in other bins. So I'll leave this for another week. We'll come back and we'll check and see how it's doing. So thank you for watching this video. And again, if you have any questions, please post a comment down below.